The first time Kira brought her pet to school, the entire class erupted into laughter so hard it nearly shook the glass panes of the Academy's xenobiology wing. At least, that's how it felt to her. Dozens of voices, different tongues, clicks, and hisses from a dozen species mixed together in a cacophony of cruel amusement. The teacher, a tall Vorkanian with jagged mandibles, didn't even try to stop it. He leaned against his lectern, arms folded, mandibles clacking in what passed for a grin among his kind. "What is this?" he finally said, after letting the laughter run its course. "What strange little vermin have you humans decided to call a companion animal? A ground scavenger? What do you call it?" Kira stood stiffly, her small hands gripping the handle of the reinforced carrier at her side. She was only 10 years old, a human child on exchange at the Galactic Concord Academy. Her brown hair stuck out in messy tufts from the rush of waking late that morning, and her cheeks burned redder than any atmospheric flare. Her pet shifted inside the carrier with an annoyed growl that silenced at least some of the laughter. "It's not vermin," Kira said firmly, even as her voice trembled under the weight of ridicule. "It's a honey badger." The words did not have the effect she hoped. A silence, yes, but not of respect. Instead, it was the loaded silence of confusion. Then came the howls of laughter again, louder this time. "A badger?" chittered a delicate winged Ural, clutching its thin chest as though it would burst from the hilarity. "The human brings ground-crawling carrion feeders. Next, perhaps, she will present worms? Or moss," added a Karth warrior student, his scaled body trembling with mirth. "Yes. Humans befriend fungus." "Quiet," snapped Kira, though the word came out more desperate than commanding. She knelt and opened the front hatch of the carrier before she could lose her nerve. Out stepped a creature so unremarkable at first glance that some of the students actually tilted their heads in further confusion. Short, thick-bodied, with coarse gray fur, a blunt snout, and eyes like twin beads of obsidian, the honey badger looked around with the unconcern of something that had never, in its existence, recognized fear. It sniffed the floor, claws scraping, then let out a short grunt. That, of course, only made the aliens laugh harder. Kira clenched her fists. She had begged her parents to let her bring something from Earth, something real, not one of those simulated companion programs the Academy provided to human exchange students. They hadn't wanted her to, saying she might be misunderstood. She insisted, and finally, her uncle, a retired ranger with a wicked sense of humor, suggested the honey badger. "They'll never forget you," he'd said with a wink. Now, standing in the sea of mocking alien children, Kira wondered if she just made herself into the biggest joke in the galaxy. Her teacher clicked his mandibles again. "A scavenger. Not even an apex predator, from what my databanks suggest. Small, landlocked, unimpressive bite force. You bring this to impress us?" The honey badger, as if insulted by the tone, looked up at the towering Vorkanian, bared its teeth, and hissed. The class froze. Even the teacher tilted his head. No one expected a small earth creature to display defiance toward a 2-meter armored insectoid with serrated claws. The teacher muttered, amused but curious. "It is bold. I will give you that, human. But boldness without strength is just suicide." "It's not just bold," Kira said, her courage returning in a flicker. "Honey badgers don't give up. They don't care. They fight things way bigger than themselves, and they win." "Exaggeration," snorted the Karth boy. His scales shifted with a smug iridescence. "You say this thing fights predators? This tiny rodent?" Kira lifted her chin. "Yes." The teacher chuckled. "Shall we test this claim?" Before Kira could ask what he meant, the Vorkanian raised one serrated arm and gestured toward the back wall. A panel hissed open, revealing one of the Academy's learning exhibits, containment fields used to safely display alien species for study. Inside, a predator shifted, snarling. It was a young Tharn beast, a creature the size of a large wolf, armored with bony plates across its shoulders. Its 4 eyes glowed orange as it pressed against the barrier, eager for release. The class gasped, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The teacher's mandibles clicked in wicked amusement. "Let us see if the human child's vermin has the spirit she claims. Place it inside." Kira's heart slammed against her ribs. She wanted to protest, to scream that it wasn't fair, but then she looked at the honey badger. It wasn't afraid. It stared at the predator behind the barrier with the same blank, unbothered expression it had given the floor tiles. Its claws flexed against the smooth surface. Kira swallowed hard, then nodded. The barrier shimmered away. The thorn beast burst forward with a roar, claws gouging the floor, its plated body a blur of muscle and rage. Students screamed and backed away, their laughter replaced with raw fear. The honey badger didn't move. At the last possible second, as the predator lunged with jaws wide, the small earth creature darted forward, faster than most of the aliens could track. It latched onto the beast's snout, claws digging, jaws clamping onto exposed flesh between the plates. The room filled with chaos. The predator thrashed violently, bellowing in pain. The honey badger held fast, twisting its body, tearing skin. Blood spattered across the polished floor. Kira's classmates shrieked in horror. The teacher's mandibles hung open in stunned disbelief. The honey badger finally released its grip, only to dart underneath the beast's plated chest and claw savagely at its unprotected belly. The thorn beast howled, collapsing onto its side as the small mammal ripped into it with berserker fury. Within less than a minute, the predator that had been the Academy's proud display specimen lay bleeding, whimpering, and utterly broken. The honey badger climbed onto its chest, lifted its blood-smeared snout, and hissed at the room. No one laughed. Kira, chest heaving, whispered the words her uncle had taught her. "Nothing scares a honey badger." The silence that followed was thicker than vacuum. Aliens who had mocked her just minutes ago now stared at the small human child and her unassuming pet with wide, fearful eyes. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, Kira felt taller than all of them. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. Because if her classmates feared the honey badger now, they hadn't yet seen what happened when someone really tried to threaten it. Or her. The day after the incident, the Galactic Concord Academy didn't feel the same. Where Kira used to feel like an outsider, trailing through halls filled with whispering aliens, now she felt the weight of eyes watching her every step. The laughter was gone. Replaced instead with something heavier, quieter, and sharper, fear. Students who once shoved past her without thought now gave her a wide berth. The Euro with its delicate wings no longer hovered close to mock her accent. It pressed against the walls when she passed. Even the Karth boy, who had been the loudest to mock her, Rodent, avoided her gaze. And at the center of it all, padding along beside her with blood still faintly staining its fur, was the honey badger. Kira had tried to clean it up the night before in her small quarters, but the creature wriggled, hissed, and bit the cloth she used. Finally, she gave up. Her uncle's words echoed in her head again. They don't care, Kira. They don't care about predators, wounds, or anything else. They just don't. Now she saw the truth in it. The honey badger wasn't a pet like the others brought by students. It wasn't bred for obedience or companionship. It wasn't tame in the way the Academy expected. It was wild, and it was fearless. And somehow, that made it hers. She walked into her morning class to the sound of silence. The Vorkanian teacher stood at the front, mandibles clamped tight, his multifaceted eyes tracking her carefully. The floor had been scrubbed spotless since yesterday's battle, the predator's body removed and the smell of disinfectant clinging to the air. "Human," the teacher said after a long pause. "You will sit." Kira did, sliding into her seat with the honey badger curling at her feet like some miniature guardian beast. None of the students dared comment. The lesson began, but Kira barely heard it. Her mind replayed the fight, the shock in her classmates' faces, the blood on her pet's teeth. She should have been scared, horrified even, but she wasn't. Instead, she felt proud. That pride lasted until mid-break, when the whispers started again. She sat under the tall crystal branch trees in the courtyard, nibbling on a ration bar, when 3 figures approached. The Karth boy led them, scales glimmering under the sunlight, flanked by 2 taller species, hulking direct twins whose tusked jaws made them look like living battering rams. So, the Karth sneered, his voice sharp but not quite steady. You think your creature makes you special? That you're stronger than us now? Kira tensed, her stomach twisting. The honey badger opened one eye, yawned, and flopped over lazily. I don't think I'm stronger than anyone, she said carefully. But I know my pet doesn't scare easy. The direct twins snorted in unison. We are not easy, human. The Karth leaned closer. Yesterday was a trick. A lucky strike. Your vermin faced a young Tharn beast, half-trained, barely fed. If it faced a real predator, it would be nothing but a smear. That's not true, Kira snapped, surprising even herself with the sudden edge in her voice. The honey badger lifted its head, blinking, and then gave a guttural growl. The direct twins hesitated. One shifted uneasily. But the Karth pressed forward. Then prove it. Prove your creature is as fearless as you claim. How? Kira asked, though she already knew she wouldn't like the answer. The boy's scaled lips curled into a smirk. The Academy hosts the trial of species this cycle. Each student presents their chosen companion in a demonstration. Most bring beauty, intelligence, or rare abilities. His smirk widened. You can bring your little scavenger. If it survives, perhaps it earns respect. If not, he trailed off, his eyes flashing cruel amusement. Kira's throat went dry. The trial of species was more than a performance. It was a contest. Students showcased their bonded animals or companions before the entire academy, sometimes pitting them against controlled obstacles or each other. It was meant as education and entertainment both. For Kira, it would be a bloodbath. She wanted to say no, to walk away. But then she remembered the laughter, the humiliation, the way they all looked at her like she was nothing. And she remembered the honey badger standing over the Tharn beast, daring anyone to defy it. Her uncle's voice echoed once more, they'll never forget you. Kira met the Karth's eyes. Fine. We'll enter. The Karth blinked then laughed. Good. We'll see how long your rodent lasts. He turned sharply, the direct twins following, though both cast uneasy glances at the little earth creature now glaring at them with bared teeth. Kira exhaled shakily once they were gone. She looked down at the honey badger. You're going to get us killed, aren't you? She whispered. The creature growled softly, almost like agreement. That night, Kira tried to prepare. She pulled up every bit of data she could on honey badgers, facts she already knew but read again to calm her nerves. Thick skin, resistant to bites and stings. Ability to survive venom. Insatiable ferocity. A willingness to fight lions, hyenas, even humans. But she also found the darker truths. They were stubborn, uncontrollable, and untrainable. The academy demanded obedience from companion animals. The honey badger didn't know the meaning of the word. She paced her quarters while the animal dozed, trying to think of a plan. Maybe she could argue against the trial. Maybe the teachers wouldn't allow it. Then she remembered the gleam in her Vorkanian instructor's eyes when he'd seen the honey badger tear into the Tharn beast. He wouldn't stop it. He'd encourage it. To the academy, this was more than a contest, it was entertainment. And to the other students, it was a chance to see her humiliated, or worse. Sleep didn't come easy that night. When it did, it came in restless flashes of blood, claws, and laughter. The following morning, an announcement confirmed her fears. All students, the academy's headmaster's voice echoed through the halls. The trial of species will commence in 2 cycles. Prepare your companions for demonstration. Kira's stomach turned to ice. Words spread quickly. Wherever she went, whispers followed. The human's pet will die. It will be crushed. The scavenger will squeal. Yet in those whispers was also something new, something Kira hadn't heard before. Uncertainty. The image of the Tharn beast lying broken beneath the honey badger's claws still haunted them. No one could dismiss it entirely. That uncertainty gave her just enough courage to keep going. The next 2 days were a blur. She tried everything, running drills, practicing commands, offering food rewards, but the honey badger ignored her at every turn. It did what it wanted when it wanted. Sometimes it followed her. Sometimes it wandered. Sometimes it fell asleep in the middle of what she thought was training. On the eve of the trial, she sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the animal sprawled on her bed. "I don't know how to help you," she admitted. "Everyone else has creatures that listen, that obey. You just don't care." The honey badger opened one eye, stared at her for a long moment, then went back to sleep. Kira laughed weakly, wiping her eyes. "Right. You don't care. I guess I shouldn't either." The next morning, the arena thundered with noise. The trial of species wasn't some small classroom display, it was a grand event. The Academy's central dome gleamed with energy shields, seating filled with students, teachers, and even visiting dignitaries. Each companion would face challenges of increasing danger, some physical, some mental, and the crowd would judge. Kira stood near the entry gate, heart hammering as she watched other students present first. The Ural's delicate winged creature solved the puzzle of lights, earning polite applause. The Drek twins' armored beast shattered stone blocks, drawing roars of approval. The Karth boys' reptilian predator dispatched a simulated prey drone with terrifying precision, and the crowd cheered wildly. Then the announcer's voice boomed. "Next, the human exchange student, Kira of Earth, and her honey badger." Laughter rippled through the stands. Even after yesterday, the name alone sounded ridiculous to alien ears. Kira swallowed hard. She looked down at the honey badger beside her. It yawned, stretched, and padded forward without hesitation. The gate opened. The crowd jeered, cheered, hissed. The arena floor shimmered with the first challenge, a maze of shifting walls, filled with obstacles and drones designed to test agility and obedience. Kira's heart thudded. She hadn't trained for this. The honey badger didn't follow commands. But as the first drone whirred to life and zipped toward it, the creature let out a snarl and launched forward. The crowd gasped as the honey badger didn't dodge or flee, it attacked. In seconds, metal shards rained across the arena floor, the drone reduced to wreckage. The honey badger shook its fur and kept moving, unbothered, tearing through obstacle after obstacle with reckless ferocity. The crowd's laughter turned into a stunned silence, then into uneasy murmurs. And Kira realized, standing there, that maybe, just maybe, this could work. By the time the honey badger finished tearing apart the maze, the entire arena had gone silent. Shards of drones littered the floor, the walls were scratched and gouged, and a trail of destruction marked every step the creature had taken. The final barrier had been reduced not by solving its locking mechanism but by sheer force, claws and teeth ripping through power conduits until the entire structure collapsed in sparks. And through it all, the honey badger had not once paused to look back at Kira. It hadn't waited for a command. It hadn't cared for approval. It just bulldozed forward, destroying whatever stood in its way. The silence of the crowd broke into a low rumble of voices, uncertain, cautious, almost fearful. Kira's heart pounded. She hadn't done anything. She hadn't guided or helped. But she realized that didn't matter. The honey badger didn't need help. The announcer's voice trembled slightly as it echoed. "See Challenge 1, completed. Proceeding to the second round." The arena floor shimmered again, panels retracting, and new machinery rose from beneath. This time, cages slid open. 3 predators emerged, their glowing eyes locking immediately onto the honey badger. Gasps swept the audience. They weren't just predators. They were thorn beasts, 3 of them, larger and older than the juvenile specimen from Kira's class. Muscles rippled under their plated hides as they stalked forward, claws clicking against the arena floor. Kira's stomach dropped. This was no controlled test. This was execution. She turned toward the official's booth, where the Vorkanian instructor stood among other faculty. "This isn't fair," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You can't put my pet against 3 of those." The instructor leaned toward his calm, mandibles clicking in amusement. "The trial adapts to challenge the nature of the competitor. If your companion is as fearless as you claim, human, then let us see." The crowd cheered wildly. Some for blood, some for spectacle. Kira looked back in horror just as the first thorn beast lunged. The honey badger didn't hesitate. It didn't retreat. It didn't even blink. It charged. The collision was brutal. The badger slammed headfirst into the thorn beast's snout, claws latching into its face. Blood sprayed instantly as it bit down on the soft flesh between plates. The predator howled, thrashing, but the honey badger twisted with manic energy, shredding as it clung like a living nightmare. The second beast roared and lunged, but the honey badger dropped low, rolling free, and latched onto its leg. With impossible savagery, it ripped into the joint until bone cracked audibly. The massive predator collapsed, shrieking, unable to stand. The crowd erupted into a mix of cheers and horrified screams. Kira gripped the rail so hard her knuckles turned white. Her chest heaved as if she were the one fighting. "Come on, come on!" The third thorn beast circled, wary now. Its glowing eyes darted between its wounded packmates and the small, blood-drenched creature that showed no sign of tiring. Then, in a move that sent the entire audience gasping, the honey badger charged it too. It was madness. Sheer insanity. But that was the honey badger's way. It didn't measure odds. It didn't calculate danger. It only knew attack. The thorn beast swiped, claws slashing. The badger rolled under, came up, and sank its teeth deep into the beast's throat. For several terrifying seconds, predator and prey writhed in a frenzy of blood and snarls. The honey badger clung on, refusing to let go even as the beast slammed it against the ground over and over. Kira's heart stopped. The crowd roared. The Vorkanian instructor leaned forward, eyes gleaming with predatory fascination. Then, suddenly, the thorn beast collapsed. Its body shuddered once, twice, and then stilled. The honey badger stood over it, soaked in gore, sides heaving. Its eyes glinted black and fearless as it raised its bloodied snout and hissed at the crowd. Silence fell. Even the Drek twins, who had laughed earlier, sat wide-eyed and pale. The Karth boys' scales dulled in visible fear. For the first time, the audience wasn't watching for spectacle. They were witnessing something primal, something that tore at the foundations of their understanding. This was no pet. No companion. No tool. This was Earth's madness distilled into fur and claws. Kira's knees trembled as relief washed over her. She wanted to rush down, scoop the creature up, hide it away before something worse could happen. But the announcer's voice broke through, shaky but unyielding. "Second round complete. Proceeding to the final trial." Kira froze. Final trial? The arena shifted once more. The floor panels opened, but this time it wasn't a predator that emerged. It was a machine. A towering combat drone, 3 meters tall, bristling with shock lances, bladed arms, and plasma emitters. Its eyes burned red as its systems powered up, energy humming. The crowd gasped again, this time with genuine alarm. The trial of species was meant to showcase companions, not pit them against war machines. Kira spun toward the official's booth. "Stop this! You can't do this, it'll kill it!" But the Vorkanian only tilted his head, mandibles twitching. "Unless it isn't just an animal. Unless it is what the human claims." The drone stepped forward with a metallic thud. Kira's throat tightened. This wasn't just spectacle. Someone, maybe the Karthus family, maybe the instructors, wanted to prove something. To crush her. To crush Earth. The honey badger stared up at the machine. It sniffed once, for bristling, and let out a guttural growl. The crowd held its breath. The drone raised its plasma arm and fired. A searing bolt of energy scorched across the floor, only to hit empty space. The honey badger had darted aside with shocking speed, claws scraping as it launched forward. It slammed into the drone's leg and bit down. Sparks flew. Metal screeched. The honey badger tore at armored plating with the same fury it had given flesh and bone. The drone staggered, adjusting, slamming its foot down, but the creature refused to let go. The crowd screamed, half in horror, half in awe. Kira's chest burned as she shouted without thinking. "Bite it! Don't stop!" And for once, just once, the honey badger almost seemed to listen. It climbed, claw over claw, up the machine's leg, ripping cables and tearing through armor. The drone flailed, blades slashing, but the creature dodged, bit, clawed again. It reached the torso, shredded a conduit, and the machine spasmed violently as arcs of energy sprayed. Still the honey badger climbed. Up to the neck. Up to the head. With a final, insane burst of ferocity, it sank its teeth into the drone's sensor array and ripped it free. The machine convulsed once, twice, then collapsed with a thunderous crash, smoke billowing from its ruined frame. The honey badger stood atop the wreckage, blood and oil dripping from its jaws. The crowd went utterly still. Then, in a wave that shook the dome, they erupted, not with laughter, not with mockery, but with raw, terrified cheers. The announcer's voice quavered, almost reverent. Final trial, complete. Victory, to the human. Kira could barely breathe. Her knees threatened to give out. But through the roar of the crowd, the sight of her pet standing triumphant on the wreckage of a war machine burned into her mind. She knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing would ever be the same again. Because the galaxy had just seen what Earth called harmless. And they would never laugh again. When the honey badger leapt down from the ruined combat drone, the entire arena pulled back as if the creature might spring into the crowd itself. Kira hurried forward, her legs shaky, heart hammering. She half expected her pet to be burned or broken after that last fight, but when she reached it, the little beast merely shook itself like a dog coming out of a puddle. Bits of metal clattered off its fur. Its black eyes glanced at her once, briefly, then it trotted past her as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The crowd still roared, but it wasn't the sound of amusement anymore. It was something deeper, excitement mingled with fear. The sound of beings realizing they had just witnessed a rule rewritten. The announcer's voice wavered. The human child's companion, victorious. A most unexpected result. Kira's knees threatened to buckle from relief. She wanted to laugh, to cry, to shout "told you so" at every one of those smug alien faces. But she forced herself to stand tall. The honey badger wasn't celebrating, so she wouldn't either. By the time they left the arena floor, the whispers had already begun. Did you see how it fought? No fear, none at all. Even the Tharn beasts fell. That was a war machine. She knew those whispers would spread. By morning, the entire academy, no, the entire Concord, would be buzzing with the story. For once, she didn't dread it. That night, back in her quarters, Kira sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the honey badger curled in the corner. It was snoring softly, belly rising and falling, as if it hadn't just slaughtered 3 predators and dismantled a combat drone. "You're unbelievable," she whispered. "Do you know that? You're supposed to be just an animal. You're not trained, you're not special. But you don't stop." The honey badger grunted in its sleep, rolled over, and went still again. Kira hugged her knees, smiling faintly. "Uncle was right. They'll never forget me. Not after today." For the first time since leaving Earth, she felt like she belonged, not because she fit in, but because she didn't. Because humans didn't. The following day confirmed her suspicion. Everywhere she went, students parted like she was carrying a live plasma grenade. Some stared with awe, others with thinly veiled fear, but no one laughed anymore. The Euro fluttered nervously when she passed. The Drek twins muttered quietly to each other but didn't dare block her way. Even the Karth boy, who had mocked her most, kept his distance, his scales dulled to a muted gray. Instructors eyed her with a mixture of curiosity and unease. The Vorkanian teacher's mandibles clicked whenever he saw her, though whether in amusement or something darker, Kira couldn't tell. During mid-meal, she overheard 2 senior students whispering. "They say Earth breeds creatures like that everywhere. That it's normal for them. Impossible. No species would survive with predators like that. Then how do you explain yesterday?" Kira ducked her head, hiding a smile. Let them wonder. Let them fear. That evening, the headmaster summoned her. The alien's towering crystalline form shimmered in its private chamber as it regarded her with unreadable facets. "Human child," it said, voice vibrating like glass under pressure. You have caused disruption. Kira's stomach tightened. I didn't mean to. The headmaster lifted a spindly appendage, silencing her. Disruption is not always negative. The Concord values strength, courage, and adaptability. Your honey badger has demonstrated these in a fashion none anticipated. Kira blinked. So, I'm not in trouble? On the contrary. You have shifted perception. Already, other academies request records of the trial. Already, whispers reach the council that perhaps humans are not the harmless primitives they believed. The crystalline alien leaned closer. This will follow you, child. It will follow your species. Kira swallowed. The weight of those words pressed on her. She hadn't meant for this to happen, not like this. She just wanted them to stop laughing. But now, the galaxy was listening. The next day, when she returned to class, the Karth boy finally approached her again. But this time, there was no sneer. No mockery. His scales shimmered dull with nervous energy. You, he began, voice strained. Your creature, it should not have survived. Kira raised a brow. But it did. He shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps I misjudged you. Kira almost laughed at the awkwardness of it. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Instead, she simply shrugged. Maybe next time you'll think before you laugh. The honey badger, lounging under her desk, bared its teeth at him in a lazy hiss. The Karth boy flinched and backed away. Kira smirked. Good talk. The legend grew faster than she expected. By the end of the week, students who'd never spoken to her before whispered requests to see the honey badger. Some wanted to study it. Some wanted to touch it. Most were too afraid. Everywhere she went, she heard fragments of stories. It tore through 3 beasts. It killed a machine designed for war. The human called it a pet. And beneath those whispers, a question lingered. If this is what a child brings as a pet, what else does humanity keep hidden? That was the real victory. Not the trial, not the spectacle. The fear. On her next calm call home, Kira's uncle laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. I told you! He wheezed, tears in his eyes. I told you they'd never forget. You should see your face right now. You've made history, kiddo. Kira tried not to grin too hard. You set me up. Of course I did. The galaxy thinks humans are soft. I figured it was time they learned the truth. And who better than my niece to teach em? Kira shook her head, but she couldn't stop smiling. Uncle, they're terrified. His grin widened. Good. Let em be. Weeks passed. The academy's routines returned to normal, on the surface. Classes resumed, lessons continued, but nothing was truly the same. Kira noticed it in small ways. The way other species treated her with caution now. The way instructors watched her more closely. The way even casual games of strategy ended quickly if she joined. No one wanted to test their luck against a human anymore. It wasn't always comfortable. Sometimes she wished she could just be another student, another face in the crowd. But then she'd see the honey badger sprawled in a sunbeam, fur still ragged from scars, and she remembered, this was bigger than her. She wasn't just Kira of Earth anymore. She was the girl with the beast that made predators scream. One evening, as she walked back from study, a small Euro fluttered nervously beside her. Human, it whispered, voice trembling. Is it true? Do all your people keep such monsters as pets? Kira paused, then smiled slyly. Maybe. The Ural shivered, wings folding tightly around its body. It darted away without another word. Kira chuckled softly to herself. Let them wonder. Let them think every corner of Earth held something just as mad, just as fearless. Because maybe it did. The galaxy had learned an important lesson that day, though few realized it fully yet. They had laughed at humans. They had mocked what seemed small, harmless, and weak. And then a honey badger, a little Earth creature, had torn through predators and machines alike without fear. If that was just a pet, what would they think when they saw what humans themselves could do? Kira looked out her window at the stars glittering beyond the academy dome. Her heart swelled, not just with pride, but with anticipation. One day they'd learn. One day, they'd see that the honey badger wasn't an exception. It was a warning. And when that day came, she thought with a grin, the galaxy would scream a lot louder than her classmates ever had.